Hi guys, welcome back to week 2 of Ethics in Pop Culture and Entertainment. I was really impressed with your work in week 1, so good for you guys. Keep up the good work. I was delighted at the level of analysis you guys gave as far as connecting the definitions of pop culture that we looked at with the movie Ready Player One. So good on you guys. This week I'm going to be asking you to do something slightly in the reverse. I'll ask you guys to start with watching something like a movie or a TV show, and then extracting the ethical ideas out as opposed to applying them to that. This sort of goes hand in hand with one of the things I mentioned last time, which is that we can use pop culture artifacts like movies as a way of highlighting or exposing ethical issues. And this week we'll focus on race and ethnicity kinds of issues. There's a lot of different ways we could go with that, and I've listed a number of films for you guys to watch that I think are all pretty intense and get to the heart of some of the harshest tensions that we face. And I think you'd be hard pressed, with a couple exceptions, to find any set of issues that's more sort of in public consciousness in this country than differences of race and ethnicity. So I'll let you guys do the exploring through the cinema or the TV that raises some of the questions. But it should be noted right up front, part of the reason that I picked this issue is I think it's intimately connected with a lot of the other things that we'll focus on through the semester. So it's difficult in this country to separate questions of economic justice, let's say, from questions of race. On average, people of color are likelier to be poorer than white people. Although the sheer number, the total number, there are more poor white people than blacks and Latinos, but that's only a function of the fact that there are just more white people in general. But by percentage, you're more likely to be worse off economically if you're African American or Latino in this country than if you're white or Asian, let's say. So there's race correlates with those kinds of issues. So by thinking about race, we already get a preview into some of the other things that we'll be thinking about. That was one of my reasons in choosing this as a module. I think there are also things that you could point to in entertainment that sort of highlight some of these tensions. And again, sort of our second kind of question, ethical issues about the entertainment industry itself and the practices in it. So you may remember from the Oscars a couple years ago, there was a sort of a hue and cry about the fact that almost every Oscar nominee, and I think every winner, was a white person and no one of color was represented. So that raises questions about racial diversity in entertainment and what's called whitewashing. So, for example, there was an outcry about the movie Aloha. That was a movie about Hawaii that came out a few years ago, where a white actress named Emma Stone played an Asian character, and probably justifiably some outrage about that. I mean, Emma Stone's a very good actress, but surely there are good Asian actresses out there who could have portrayed an Asian character. And it would not have likely hurt the box office all that much, given sort of the other stars there. So there doesn't really seem to be much excuse for that kind of thing. So that raises questions. What can we do to increase diversity in entertainment? Or is there an argument against increasing diversity in entertainment? So looking at those kinds of issues. One thing that I'll ask you guys to reflect on specifically in the discussion forum is a phenomenon that of late has gained a lot of attention. It's called cultural appropriation. And the idea is cultural appropriation happens when a dominant group or class seizes on something interesting, distinctive, or unique to another culture that sort of belongs to a disadvantaged class or a special class of people, or a disempowered or disenfranchised group. So you can think of things like when I was younger, it was young suburbanite kids dressing like inner city residents, let's say, or borrowing African American styles of music or dress. It could be anime, right? That's one question. You see a lot of people who are really interested in anime. The Japanese movie form, right? And then people have cultivate this interest in Japan. Is that a subtle form of racism, in the sense that it perpetuates certain kinds of stereotypes about Japan and Japanese culture? and some folks will complain about the sort of myopic view of what that brings, and it ultimately harms a culture rather than does it benefit, you might say. And I'm sort of going over this in broad strokes because we'll look at an article and discussion forum, and I'll open that up to you guys. Is cultural appropriation ethical or unethical? Are there conditions that you can spell out when borrowing artifacts from one culture might be appropriate and co-opting them rather than cases where it's inappropriate? And I think in some ways this ties into some other larger questions, even in high culture, about plundering other civilizations. So is there an ethical issue there, and how is that connected to race? I mean, I think that might be kind of fun to think about. So you may be happy to find that there's significantly less reading this time around than last week, and it's decidedly less technical, mostly because I want to do the movie that you choose or the show that you choose to do the talking or do the learning for you, and then you guys will apply or do the presenting of material for you, and then you guys will use your critical thinking skills to unearth some issues for me, throw them up and put them in the light for us to think about. That's pretty much it for this week. I just sent an email out regarding the possibility of meeting in person, which I'd still like to do, but I've got some schedule challenges. So please take a minute to check your email and let me know if you're A, interested in meeting, and B, what afternoons might work better for you. And that way I can maybe set something up in our schedule that works better for all of us. As always, let me know if you have questions. I'm here and happy to help. Not this week, but the next week is the week we'll be doing the philosophy of humor stuff. So I'm pretty jazzed up about that, but all that in due course. And have a good weekend, and reach out if you need any help or have any questions. Thanks.